All right, cool.
Well, first of all, welcome to our virtual community. We are at the Midwest AV Experience, the largest collection of bass heads, I think, first of all, that I've ever been to. That's crazy with your subwoofers. So, I think this is a very germane presentation for us to have here at the M-Wave show.
What was that?
So welcome to our virtual audience. I'm Nick, our VP of Marketing for SBS, with our National Training Manager, Larry McGough, who goes all over the country, setting up systems like this in various dealers and retail shops, getting them dialed in, really training the folks how to sell audio and then how to make it sound as good as possible. Because as much as we're all enthusiasts, sometimes on the store level, they need a little bit of an extra push and a little education, and that's what Larry is all about. So today, I'll let him sort of talk about what the agenda is going to be, but this is sort of a 101, 201 level. So we may be covering some ground that a lot of you are familiar with already, but you may learn some things as well. So without further ado, here's Larry McGough, our national.
Thank you, sir. And we're so glad to be here. Doing shows like this is really a blast, and we're going to call this 101. And I know a lot of you know way more about audio than we do, and so I'm not going to go there. And so really what this is about is the journey of getting a sub. And you got to meet Nick and myself, Larry. And before we get going, how many of you watch us on like YouTube and Facebook and stuff? That's cool. It's so weird having people come up like wanting to take selfies with us and like, hey, I feel like I know you, but it's cool because I don't think this really happens from a lot of other brands. And it's actually the most fun aspect that we have of our job is getting to hang out with you all. And so while we're here today, and those of you guys on YouTube and Facebook, we love the interaction. So, reach out to us, ask us questions, use our customer service team, things like that.
And this is interactive.
Yeah.
Stop us, ask a question. I may interrupt if I see a good question come through on the comments.
And
so let's make this.
So this is team-based, all right? So part of where this idea came from is we did the Expona show a few months back in Chicago, and we were asked to do a seminar. And as the trainer for the brand, this is the kind of stuff that I interact with our retail employees around. And we kind of are going to turn that a little bit to give consumer education here. So what we're going to go through is really the different types of subs, how to figure out which one's right for you. We'll go into how to pick the right subwoofer too, placement, setting crossovers, some geek stuff, answer some questions. We're going to try to stay out of like individual, I've got this, and this, and I want to try to accomplish this. If you guys want to do that, let's do that after because we love geeking out like that. We'll try to do this like 45 minutes to an hour or so, and then we'll blow up and do some demos if that's cool with you all too. Okay, so let's kind of look at what makes a subwoofer. This is actually the most important thing that I talk to when I'm interacting with our retailers is what is the purpose of a subwoofer? So when you think subwoofer, what does a subwoofer do? Boom, it's low end. It doesn't do anything but bass, right? So to do that though, there's real subwoofers and then there's mid-bass subwoofers. And this crowd is so much fun. You see them laugh like when they should. So it's kind of awesome. But what we look for when we design a subwoofer, when SVS creates a subwoofer, if you guys need more chairs, we're just taking them from next door. So feel free, and then we'll shuffle them all back too. So we have standing room only here for you guys online. But what we look for is we want to have these 5 things occur when we launch and release a subwoofer. And what we look for first and foremost is have great low frequency extension. So every product that we release to market is capable of going extremely low. We hit a particular number, and that's 20 hertz on every model that you associate with SVS. And that's a pretty big accomplishment because what happens at 20 hertz? Anybody know?
Can't hear it.
You can't hear it. But what can you do? You can feel it, right? And that's really cool to be able to do that with, I hate using the term entry level for our 1000 Pro series, but that's where we start as a brand. And that's a 20 hertz and under sub, which is pretty remarkable. Even the micro over here is capable of going under 20 hertz, depending on how you get it placed in the room. So having great low frequency extension is amazing. And there will be products out there on the market that are subwoofers that are geared towards 30 hertz and above. That's not really who we are. We will play in that spectrum amazingly well, but we want to have great low frequency extension. The second aspect of that is being able to play those low frequencies at reference volumes. Based on conversations here, you guys play it loud. So you want to be able to handle that volume and that output as you raise to those extreme theatrical volume levels and not have your subwoofer be held back. So our subwoofers, as you increase volume, will not only increase volume, but keep that low frequency output too. And some demos I'll do in stores is I'll go into a room where maybe like our 4000 or 3000 series is connected to a big Macintosh amplifier with some large speakers, and I'll disconnect the speakers just so I can take that max stack to 100% volume and show that. And it's intense. You can't be in that room for very long, but it handles the output and it handles the low frequency at the same time. We're not doing that, obviously, but when you get louder, there are products that you'll buy a subwoofer that do extreme amp limiting to protect them from getting damaged. So you've probably all been in a room where as you get louder, the subwoofer is like, whoa, I'm going to hang out back here. Your speakers will get louder, but the bass kind of disappears, and that's not what you want to have happen. So 1 and 2, play low and be able to handle loud volumes. 3 and 4 kind of go hand in hand. You don't want to be accurate. You want to represent exactly what the director, the musician, the sound engineer, whoever intended when they created whatever it is you're listening to, and represent it properly, and don't add anything that shouldn't be there, like with a low roll-off or distortion. And so we're able to do that with speed and control, which is kind of number 4, the ability to start and stop on a dime. And we'll do a demo later with the movie Baby Driver. It's one of our favorite ones to showcase that, because there's all this action and intensity and music and stuff going on, and then just silence, and it just stops. And that's something to show, you know, if you've got a driver that can be hammering and going really fast and then just stop on a dime, you've got a really quick driver. All of ours will do that as well, whether they're sealed or ported, which we'll talk about in a minute too.
3 and 4 is really why we're a passive radiator.
Exactly. So we'll talk about that too. There's different kinds of subs, where there's sealed, there's ported, there's dual driver systems that are out there. We do, all of our subs are active and powered. Even our micro that's down here, it's got 2 drivers in it. Both of them are active and powered. You'll see what Nick was referring to as products that use a passive radiator, or what we call the drone cone, where one driver is amplified and the other one reacts to it. And so they tend to not go as deep, not be as fast, and you will also get a little bit more distortion from many of those too. But the big one that we've had at shows like this, primarily the 2-channel purists, is, any of you do 2-channel? Okay. Do you have a subwoofer on that system?
So much different than every show we go to.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, most of the shows we're at, it's nothing but 2-channel. We're the only home theater group or home theater demo. But if you do 2-channel, you know, your speakers are designed to do certain things. There's not a ton of speakers that are designed to go well under 30 hertz, and to really do that, you've got to get some pretty extreme volume. So by adding a subwoofer, one of the big misconceptions is what it's doing is just adding boom and being loud in your room. But if you do it right, it will blend with the speakers, and what we'll do is you'll hear this gain and output. You'll get, your speakers will sound larger, your room will sound larger, and it's more immersive. So if you can do all of these things really well and then properly blend it in your room, you'll have a better experience overall. And we believe we do that with every product we make, whether it's a sealed product, a ported product, our cylinder, our new micro, and even our new in-wall subwoofer too. So we've got a lot of different flavors that we offer. So how many of you have a sealed subwoofer in your home? Okay. How many of you have a ported subwoofer in your home? Yeah, I was expecting to see that. So we do both, and you know, I would say our most common is probably sealed, because they're typically a little bit smaller than the ported subwoofers. But if you are, you know, here we're learning in this market that all of you have large ported subs, which is awesome. You know, I have both in my house, just kind of depends on the room. But sealed subs, in particular SVS, we have a phrase that we love to say. SVS sealed subs do everything well and nothing poorly. They're great for music, great for movies, great for gaming, daytime, nighttime listening, loud volumes, low volumes, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, they'll handle it really well. And they'll do it in a smaller form factor than a ported sub will. Okay? And they're very fast, they're great for movies, great for music. But if you do have a larger room, whether it's a basement or open concept living room, or you're trying to recreate that theatrical experience, like when you go to the Dolby Cinema and the IMAX, that's where our ported subwoofers come into play. And if they're in the same family of SVS products, whether it's like the 1000 series, 2000 series, 3000, 4000, 16, they use the exact same driver and amplifier. The difference being is it's going to offer these ports. And when you get those ports, you get what's called frequency tuning, which allows us to go louder, deeper, and give you a little bit more control over what you can do with your subs. So if I go from a sealed product to a ported product, sorry, it's a laser and it doesn't want me to get my eyes in the way. So if I go from sealed to ported, what it does, I will be twice as loud at the exact same settings because of that additional cabinet volume, and you're getting the energy of the subwoofer moving in and out because of those ports. Okay? It will also dig a little bit deeper because of the ports being tuned to specific frequencies. Okay? But if you want the best of both worlds, you want that super fast, accurate, sealed subwoofer sound, along with that very over-the-top, theatrical based experience like the movies, our ported subs can do both. And what I mean by that is in the box, they'll come with these foam plugs that you can put in there and seal the subwoofer and actually change the way the subwoofer operates. You can plug up one port or you can plug up all the ports and make it operate as 3 different kinds of subs, which is really cool. We won't go too far into that, but just something else to kind of think about.
Yeah, is there a software setting you have to change to when you do that?
So I'll get into the app in a little bit, but we have a Bluetooth control app that's on every current model that SVS offers. And what you do is you plug up one port, you go into the app, and you put into what's called extended mode. It changes the frequency tuning of the sub. Or if you want to plug up all of them, you're going to listen to, some really accurate rock music from the 80s or whatever, and you just want that tight, refined bass, you plug them all up and turn it to a sealed sub. And then at night, you want to watch King Kong or whatever, you take out the port plugs and turn it back to standard mode and let it open up and breathe in your room. The biggest issue we run into with people moving from sealed to ported, though, is if it's the same series, the ported version is 60% larger. Okay, so that you just kind of have to keep in mind because it is going to have a similar cabinet volume to the sealed model, but compensating for the ports. So that's why we go here, which you have the ported cylinder. You're showing me your system. I have the ported cylinder in my living room too. The ported cylinder and the ported box products, the PB series, so SB sealed box, PB ported box, PC ported cylinder. Sorry, I didn't say that. The design philosophy here is to take the output of these big, huge ported box subs, and instead of making them 2 to 3 feet deep, let's go make them 3 to 4 feet tall and take up the same footprint as a tower. Okay, so my living room, I have an awful living room because it's dining, kitchen, hallway, all this stuff, tile, back door that goes out, that's French doors, so it's awful. And my TV sits in a corner, and I have the cylinder sitting directly behind the TV. You have no idea it's even in the room until you know it's in the room. And that's really the design philosophy there, is to allow you to put a larger sub in your room without taking up that floor space.
Can you really quick touch on room gain as it applies to the sealed cabinet?
So going into sealed subs, some subwoofers will benefit from room placement and where they are set in the room. And a sealed sub will react to a room a little differently than ported as well. So if you tuck a sealed subwoofer back into a corner, I can't do it in here, but like if you back into a corner while you're talking, you'll hear yourself get louder because your sound is being advanced by the walls and the ceiling around you. And that's kind of the same thing that a sealed subwoofer will do, is it will benefit from the room itself and actually change the way it sounds. It will get louder, possibly go deeper as well. And so that's a really basic way to explain room gain, where you can get more output based on placement. A ported sub, really, they're not as finicky when it comes to placement. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So we do those 3 types, and I kind of just hit on that. And most people, when they're talking sealed versus ported, you tend to go sealed if you're doing music or a smaller environment, ported if you're doing theatrical or trying to fill up a larger space, is really the best way to look at it. But I never want to hear that an SVS sub is, if it's sealed, it's for music, and if it's ported, it's strictly for movies. Bless you, because that's simply not the case, because we can do a little bit of everything with those. Okay? So how do you choose the right sub? If you haven't looked at our lineup, we have like 50 million different subwoofers now. So we have 6 series of subs, and each of those have a couple different products too. So if you're on your journey to finding your subwoofer, we have a tool to help you figure that out. So if you want to do this, feel free to take out your phone. I know the Comic-Con thing that's here has kind of killed our cell phone signal, but we have a tool on our website to help people find the right product for your needs, along with how to tune it. And the way it works is, a lot of people think whatever brand of speakers I buy, I have to buy that same brand of sub. And that's really not the case, because we go back to the first thing I asked you, subs do one thing and one thing only, and that's bass. So they don't need to be brand matched or timbre matched like speakers tend to do. So on this website, you go to svsound.com, and under subwoofers, you'll see a tool called the matching tool. Or the best way I say to do it is go to our website, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then up about an inch or two, and you'll see the logo for the matching tool. And what it does is it helps you recommend a subwoofer based on your speakers. So you put in a brand of speakers and a model of speakers, and we have a database of like 10,000 speakers. If you guys need more chairs, feel free to grab them from next door. I don't know if we were expecting this many people. And we got one up here too, if anybody wants to sit down. But like in here, I just put in a pair of Bowers towers, the 684, really popular tower out there on the market. And I think it's actually just recently been updated. But what it does, it goes, okay, based on this speaker, I'm going to look in the database, and I'm going to find a frequency-matched subwoofer. And what it does is it goes, okay, based on that, we're recommending the 3000 or the 4000. You figure out if you're going to do sealed or ported. And then we take it a step further. You're like, okay, I definitely want sealed, so I want that SB 3000. And right here, you would click, damn it, you click View Recommended Settings, and what it will then do is bring up this page here. And what it's showing you is on those settings, you know what, I have a laser pointer, so let's remember that. So up here in the top right corner, what it's showing is if you've got an AV receiver, it needs to be set at this point for the crossover. But what it actually says is your speaker crossover. And I'm going to get into that a little bit differently. But if you're doing a stereo preamp, you know, extra components, or just doing a 2-channel setup, the bass management's different. I need to change the low pass filter on the subwoofer. And some of you may not understand what I'm saying, so I'm gonna show you that too. Because bass management is different if you're coming off a home theater receiver than it is off separate components or a 2-channel amp. And so let's help you understand that too. So based on your Bowers 684, if you are connected to a home theater system, that's what you'll see in there. It'll say System 1, and it tells you to hook everything up, run your room correction, like in this case Odyssey with the Marantz we're using down here. And then it says, go into the system and set the speakers to small with a crossover of 80. Okay? That's one of the biggest questions we get to customer service is, I've run my whole system, I've run my room correction, and my subwoofer's doing nothing. I'm getting like nothing out of it, and I don't understand why. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, the volume of your sub was set way too high when you did your room correction, so the receiver's like, damn, that's loud. Let me back that down a bit. Or the second aspect, it's recognizing these speakers. Yes, they're physically large, but you should set them to small if you're running a home theater receiver with a subwoofer, and let the sub do the bass. That's what it's intended for. And then you adjust the crossover here. So even on these speakers, it would tell me to set them to small to 80 hertz. Okay? But if you're doing 2-channel, bass management is different. So what I'm going to do is down where the setup number 2, I'm going to take you here. This is if you're running separate components, when running everything at full range, or if you're running just a 2-channel amp, what you'll do is it says, okay, instead of adjusting the speakers, we're going to adjust the subwoofer for bass management. And in our case, we have an app. You just download it, just the SVS app, and it tells me that based on these 684 towers, I need to be at 50 hertz, and then I've got a slope, which is the roll-off, to blend with those speakers of 24. And that's all something you can do in the app, and it walks you through with pictures how to do that in the app too. So we've just helped you find the right sub and how to tune it. And if you've got other brands, follow these guidelines too. It's more of a kind of a helpful tool. It's not the end-all be-all. You know, if your budget is maybe $3,000 for a sub, we're not going to recommend a $3,000 sub. We're going to recommend 2 smaller subwoofers so you get a better experience, if that makes sense. 2 smaller will probably almost always be better than 1 larger subwoofer because you'll get a better bass experience all the way around, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too.
Yeah, so I'm curious when you're saying 2-channel, are you saying like if you don't have a receiver?
Yeah, just like a 2-channel amp, left and right stereo.
So how do you get the sub in there though? Because sometimes I used to have like outputs.
Yep.
But now what?
So most 2-channel systems will have pre-outs for left and right, and you just utilize that. If it doesn't have a subwoofer out, use pre-out for left and right. And that's kind of fun too. If you do 2 subs, you do 1 for left, 1 for right, and get bass management on both sides of your rooms, and your whole system becomes bigger that way too. So.
Someone asked, what volume level should your subwoofers be set
Ooh,
at?
good question. So if you're going to do your home theater system, the initial calibration with the microphone, we typically recommend somewhere around 70% volume of the subwoofer, or maybe even lower. If you happen to have a newer receiver, it will actually do a test and help you volume match it to get it like 72 dB, somewhere around there. I even go a little bit under that just because I know how much output our subs have, and then I'll go back after the fact and pull it back up. But if your subwoofer is at really loud volume when you do your calibration, has anybody here never calibrated a system before? Okay, so most of us have. The way it works is it sends a tone. I know we have people online that have it. So it sends a tone to all the speakers, and based on the distance, it either adds output to that particular product or pulls it back. And if your subwoofer is cranked and it sends that tone, it's like, nope, that's too much. And it backs it down. And that's when you end up with literally no output from your subwoofer after the fact. So we recommend turning it out, maybe half volume, and then you can go back and adjust it as well. So somewhere in that half to about 70% output. So good question. All right. So the app itself, this is on all our products. I know a lot of you are SVS owners, and this may not pertain to every brand. I know you guys don't all own our subs, and it's cool. It's what this hobby is about. But I want to make sure once you do have one of our products, you understand some of the things you can do with it. So how many of you have a room where you listen to music and movies? Okay. And I just told you bass is different from music versus theater. So we have the ability in all of our subs, and we just showed you how to kind of get the initial settings. In all of our subs, we have this Bluetooth app that allows you to fine-tune it based on your listening habits. And this is where it gets kind of fun. So those of you who have been in the industry a long time or have some other brands of subs, how do you have to adjust those subwoofers? If it's maybe too loud or your crossover is not great, what do you have to do?
Adjust your gain levels on the amp of the sub or your on level.
So you have to get up out of your awesome chair and walk over to the subwoofer, lean that 100-pound sucker back, get your flashlight, and then adjust it, right? That's the way it's always been. Well, we've eliminated that. We started this about 7 years ago with our control app. And from the app, it's just Bluetooth. I can sit in my phone or sit on my chair and be like, yeah, that's a little bit too much output. Let me adjust the volume. I feel like maybe my crossover or my low-pass filter needs to be adjusted. I can do that from my phone. I've got a null. I can kick in a parametric EQ and geeky stuff, which we'll talk about in a second too. Do that all from right here. And then I can save a listening preset based on what it is I'm listening to. So if you listen, shoot.
So I'm not trying to diminish the feasibility or usability of the app, but has SBS, you mentioned having a database of speakers right there, but has SBS considered like trying to like say recommendations if you're using Odyssey or Dirac right there, or even like tips on using REW, REW,
yeah,
or even
totally. So he's asking about kind of more deep dive or an advanced calibration, and that's where our sound experts guys will come into play, and our team of our customer service, because we train on that stuff like crazy. So if you're trying to do an even more advanced calibration, you're still going to use aspects of this app. So inside here, I can get in and I can adjust low pass, phase, polarity, parametric EQ, room gain compensation, and things like that. So this is where once you've run your room correction, and if you're one of us that wants to really make some finite and infinite changes, you can do that. Like a lot of other products, if you're running multiple subs and you need to adjust phase, what sort of options do you have for phase adjustment? You have 0 or 180, right? Okay. Well, if they're not exactly parallel to each other, that's not the best way to make that adjustment. So under ours, if I go under phase, I have 0 to 180 in 1 degree increments. So if you're doing multiple subs, that will help you with time correction, getting the sound to you as well. But where he's going is, if I want to use a more advanced software solution, you absolutely can. And then what you would do is here is just use it to help fine tune it to kind of get to that point. But inside this app, I have volume adjustment right on the main page. I have access to presets, and the presets are a lot of fun. Going back to why I asked you if you do music and movies in a room, how many of you at night have to turn down your system because you don't want to interrupt your family? A lot of us, right? Or your neighbors. Wow, one hand went up? Wow. Yeah, you guys have basements here. I live in Texas. We don't have basements. So, yeah. Or you really don't care for your neighbors. Yeah, I've been with my wife 24 years. Yeah, what year is it? It's 2023. So 22 years now, and she doesn't care anymore. She's like, do whatever. And I was like, sweet. And my kids like it too. But what we do is down in the living room where we have our subs, I've saved presets. I've got one for movies that's over the top, loud, kind of in your face, just stupid, shakes the pipes and the walls and stuff. And then we have a more subdued one, because when you're watching Nickelodeon and NFL Network and cartoons and news, you don't need that when they throw in that background music, because you've all experienced that. NFL Network is like unwatchable if your subs are running pretty hot. So I have a TV preset that dials it down, and then we have a nighttime preset that shuts it completely off. And in my case, it actually says wife, and that just goes to a whole other joke. And I don't know if I'll tell that story because I'm broadcast. Maybe after the broadcast, I'll tell you why it's called wife. Because yeah, I'll go there. But you can get in here and really fine tune it. But the presets also allow you, in my office, I have movie, music with a completely different preset setting with different low pass filter adjustments. And then I have a video game setting because the kids go in there and play Xbox and PlayStation. So it's a little bit different as well. So I can do all that on the fly, which is really awesome. And you can't do that with a majority of subwoofers out there. So if you do have a multi-purpose room, it's great for that. If you've just got a room where all you do is theater, you're probably not going to adjust a ton of things after you initially get it set, especially if you're using like RU and U mics and all those other things that are out there. But if you want to fine tune it, that's kind of where our app comes into play. But cool.
To further answer your question, you mentioned our sound experts. We'll actually do like a two-way video conversation. Everyone's system is a little different. Rooms are a little different. So to try to give like a one-size-fits-all set of advice, it's difficult. And not to say we won't ever create our own calibration software. Through the diagram, we've been trained and certified
but it's now there's a whole group of people out there talking. So yeah, but these guys can't.
There you go. But to your point, like call them up, chat with them. You can share, pictures of your measurements. We'll take the time to make sure you get very specific advice based on your personal scenario. Because again, that's part of what our ethos is as a brand, is not to leave you hanging, whether you're.
And even if you don't have our equipment, call our team.
Yeah, exactly.
I
own a power sound. That's okay. We'll still have.
Yeah, during the last 4 years, you guys all know how the world changed, and getting help while we were all stuck at home was really difficult. And we had people reaching out to us that had never even knew our brand, but heard about our customer service team too. So do that. And we'll help you with where we're going now, which is really placing your subwoofer and really finding out how to know where it should go. So how many of you have one subwoofer in your room? I just did that. I just wanted to see, okay. Yeah. How many of you had 2 and yeah, okay. So yeah, I literally that just because I was expecting that. Now, placing a subwoofer can be key. In some places, you really only have one spot it can go due to furniture or just the way your room is laid out. And so that's where some of the software that you were talking about come into play to even add more calibration to that. But really when it comes down to placement, finding the right spot for where your subwoofer goes is key. And so we look at it a couple different ways. We talk initially, if you're just doing one sub, find somewhere up near your front stage to put it. Maybe it fits on the inside, maybe it fits on the outside of your front stage, and then we'd make adjustments from there. I tend to go to a corner if I've only got one subwoofer to take advantage of that room gain like we talked about earlier to get a little bit more output. So there's that, but really ideally when you're talking about how to place a sub, and I know how many of you have a subwoofer that's 100 pounds or more? Okay, so this isn't as easy for all of us with these massive subs, but really to find where a subwoofer should go in your room, you do this thing called the subwoofer crawl. And looking around the room, most of us are at an age where we're probably not getting on our hands and knees anymore to do this. So we're just gonna call it the subwoofer walk, okay? And what you do is you physically take your subwoofer, and if it fits, you should put it in your chair, but if not, just put it right on the floor in front of your chair and face it back towards your main stage. And then get on YouTube or your phone or whatever and play a bass sweep or some music that you know really well. I have an app called Sonic that's free on iOS, not the restaurant, but it allows you to play bass notes or frequencies. And I'll do that, or I'll get on YouTube and just play a 40 hertz bass tone. And you put that subwoofer there, so have a long cable to do it, and then just get it at a moderate volume and kind of walk around the room. And you do this before you calibrate. Okay? So walk around the room, or crawl if you really want to do it, and you'll find points in the room where like I can hear it, but I'm not feeling it. And then you kind of walk over here like, oh, okay, there's a little something. And then you get your right here, and I'm like, whoa, okay, now I'm getting slammed. So I've walked around the room. This is the best point where the subwoofer is interfering with my body right now. So that's where the subwoofer goes. So you get that same kind of experience where you're sitting, okay? So you place the subwoofer there, then you run your calibration. If you're doing 2, you do the same thing once more. And depending on who you talk to, you would still have subwoofer run 1 running, and then do the same thing with subwoofer 2, but maybe put it in the listening position next to you, or the second row of seating if you have another theater, so that you have equal bass management throughout the room. Because the real benefit of going to multiple subs isn't volume. It's not headroom. It's balance. You know, if you want to get stupid loud, you can do that. But it's really so that everyone in your room has a better opportunity to experience all frequencies. And so, like if you've got 1 sub over there and 1 sub over here, like we do in this room, if we only had 1, this half of the room would probably be really good on bass, and there would be a big old null right here, and then you guys in the corner would get slammed by it, and you may not feel a single note ever. So by adding this one, we're taking care of the exact opposite of what that one's not. Does that make sense? So that's really the benefit of dual. Not necessarily you get more output, but you get more balance, and there's no more sweet spot. There's a sweet area, I guess would be a better way to look at it, okay? So you ever run into issues with wire management? We were having some conversations earlier about trying to run wires, because you may find a point where you can't get the wire from here back to where that best spot was. And so what we've done is we've created a solution to make that possible for you too, and that's called our tri-band. We also have another one just called the wireless audio adapter, but this is a full bandwidth wireless adapter, allowing you to transmit anything that uses an RCA connection, but in this case, we're going to talk subs, because sometimes you can only put a sub where you've got a spot where you can run the wire to it. And this eliminates that. So if you need to put your subwoofer in the back corner and another one over there, you can do that with this and make it wireless. And the way it works is in the box, you get 2 little things that look like this. One's a transmitter and one's a receiver. And you plug the transmitter back here to the subwoofer out, and then put your sub back there, plug in the receiver, and then there's a little cord that goes right to the sub. And if you have one of our newer subwoofers, there's actually a USB port to power this as well. So it's just literally plug and play. Now, if you're doing multiple subs, though, do you want 1 wired and 1 wireless?
You use the room correction, right?
Well, you can, but if you've got 1 wired and 1 wireless, there is going to be a difference in the signal path itself. It's not immense. So what we tell people, if you're going to do 1 wire, if 1 is wireless, they should all be wireless. So you can add on to this kit with no interference too. And this question's come up like 5-6 times today, so I made it a point to talk about this. The kit itself, the tri-band, you can add on. The other one that we have is just called the SoundPath wireless audio adapter. That's really just 1 unit. So it can do 1 sub. But if you're trying to do multiples, or maybe you have a turntable in your upstairs den and you want to send that signal downstairs to the other end of the house too, this will work for that as well. But what you do if you want to add on to this, you get the kit, and then you can buy add-on pieces to it. And so if you need to make 3 subwoofers wireless, you can do that too. Shoot.
What sort of impact to latency or delay?
It's so fast that you're not going to physically be able to hear it. If you had 1 wired and 1 wireless, some of you here, just knowing the ears that are here, may see it. And that's where you can get in. You can play with phase and then alignment inside the receiver. But we're going to recommend doing them both wireless, and then that would compensate for any sort of anything you may hear.
It's just worth mentioning the difference between the tri-band and the normal wireless adapter. Tri-band is really meant if you have sort of a congested network. It auto switches between 2.5 and 5.7 gigahertz.
Hang on, let's do that again.
Go on the most stable.
2.4, 5.2, and 5.8.
I was averaging.
Yeah, you were like 1 dB off there.
But the point being that it will find that most stable wireless connection within your network and automatically default to that, whereas the original version only works on a single bandwidth. So if you don't have security cameras and all the wireless gadgets that Larry has, then
Yeah, and it's not using your Wi-Fi. The way it's working, I'm going to go back here for a question. Just whoa. Okay. Wow. Sorry. Excuse me. Been talking all day. Now my voice wants to go. It's not using your Wi-Fi network. If you all remember cordless phones when those were a thing, just a few years ago, those use 2.4 or 5.8 gigahertz, just open spectrum. Same thing this is doing. And so in my house, we've got a family of 5, tons of devices, security cameras, lighting, all that stuff. So the 2.4 gigahertz channel in the house is kind of congested. So what this will do is automatically jump to whichever one is not, and you don't have to do anything. So let me go back here and we'll come here.
So I have 4 subs, and I'm currently using the sound out.
Yeah. So are these subs fairly close? Yeah. Okay. So on the back of this, you'll see a left input and a right. You could technically use this for, we're getting geeky here. You can use this for 2 devices. Okay, so if you have, like this receiver, the new Cinema 50, has 4 sub outs. So what I could do, if maybe I have 2 in the front and 2 in the back, is I can go sub 1 to here, sub 2 to here, put that in the back of my room, and just run left to sub 1, right to sub 2, if that's an option for you. So it can absolutely do that. So it would be kind of the same operation for you. If you wanted to run individual ones for each, there's this little button right here that says pair. So this kit is $199. And I don't think I said that. We're trying not to make a pitch like an infomercial thing, but $199 for the kit, and then each additional one is 99 bucks. Okay? And all you do, these 2 are already paired inside this box. You just open up the box, you hit this pair button here, hit the pair button on the other one, done. And it will automatically recognize it. So there's no additional setup you have to do. You just hook it up to the back of your other sub, and you're good to go. And so if you want to get all of them wireless, you can technically use this for 2, unless you're running both inputs to them. So does that answer that question? No. You can do up to 6. And between wired and wireless, I want to say that's, I thought I had it on here, but it's less than like a full millisecond. So it's really quick. No, it's full CD quality audio bandwidth. So, a full 6 hertz to 20,000. So yeah, you're good to go there. So we have another question here, and then I'll come back here.
Yes, I'm using these for my rear speakers, but I didn't know that you could use them. Are you seeing, like, what's the distance you could use them? So there's always zone 2 on the receiver. Can I use zone 2 now somewhere else in my house with the existing spot?
Yeah. By having the bandwidth that it does. So I've tested these. I took the original one, which is just 2.4, and I put it on a battery pack, and I plugged in some headphones, and I just walked around. And it worked everywhere in my house but my garage. That was where I started kind of losing, as most of us do because of all the metal. The tri-band, I got to my neighbor's house. And I was like, it's like cool. Yeah.
It can work. Like, it's not going to go through concrete and brick necessarily, but drywall.
Yeah, and it should. Yeah, if you have a normal sized home, you should have no issues getting it to every room of the house.
What's the normal size home?
Oh, so yeah. I mean, some of you have like 3 levels. Your homes, most of our homes are like 1,800 to 2,500 square feet in some of these markets, and it'll work top stairs, bottom, all around, backyard. That's actually how I get my audio into my garage now, is this transmitter. So yeah, it's great. It's awesome. It works fantastic too.
So the situation I ran into using the regular sound pack is by racks or completely different wood, and it's a lot of concrete, and so the signal.
Yeah.
Right now it's right beside my projector. And so this would.
Oh, it would solve that. And part of the reason this came about is I was traveling with the previous version of these, Prime Wireless powered speakers. And these, they're $8.99. I'll play them after this if you guys, it's my favorite product. I was traveling with them along with a router, and I was plugging the transmitter in to show everybody how cool it worked. But if it got close to the router, it would cut out. And that's probably something you're experiencing too if you've got it next to all that other equipment. And that's what this fixes. And it just works. It's amazing how well it works. And it's plug and play too. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to change your wires. I saw photos earlier of one of the houses I think you guys toured, those of you that did the VIP tours, like this really amazing Victorian looking home. You're not cutting that up to run wires, so it's another solution here. So did I answer your question too? I saw your hand come up. So
The range,
okay. Yeah,
so it had no problem ever this big.
No, not at all. No. We say somewhere up to about, if it's clear, up to about 200 feet. So, all right. So, okay. Wow. You guys are awesome. We like geeking out. Okay. Not to make them wireless. I'll be honest, there's ways, like if you do amplified speakers, you could use that transmitter to get the signal there wirelessly. Or if you put like a small amp there and then run the wire off the amps, you could do it. So there's way, if you want to geek out on that, I'll do that, because man, it might confuse some people because it's a whole conversation. Essentially, you just use the pre-out on your receiver using the transmitter, and then put the receiver back where some sort of either an amplifier is to power those speakers or powered speakers. So I got a question way back here.
Picture that in the previous one, was that the receiver or the adapter?
They literally look identical. That's just on top there. But there's two of these in the box. This is the output. So this is the actual receiver unit. The other one would say input here instead of output.
Okay, so the package gives you one receiver, one transmitter.
Exactly.
And then you need second sub, you need this one additional.
Exactly, and it's a smaller box, yeah. So, but it's so easy to use. It's been kind of fun to find different uses for it too. So.
And you would say there's absolutely no difference in sound quality?
You're not going to be able to notice it. So we've used it. We've got people that use numerous. You could put a ton of them in your house. You could probably have 20 of these guys in your house using them for 20 different things. They're not going to interfere with each other. But 6 is where we stop off of one transmitter. So and that way it's more so. I don't. Maybe it could do more. I've never tried, but we do 6. That way we don't run into any sort of signal degradation. Okay. Wow. Look at it. More questions.
The inverse question to a related one I did right there. What's the story with like trying to use these devices with a mini DSP device?
So you would have no issues running it with a mini DSP. We have a lot of people that do that. You may find yourself adjusting phase a little bit, maybe in the app a little bit more, but it would work, no issues there.
Have you noticed any difference, like when you like go between outputting from the mini DSP or between going from receiver to transmitter to receiver to mini DSP?
I don't think there'd be any issue. Honestly, I would do it before the mini DSP, just so that the signal going there isn't changed by the physical mini DSP itself. So what he was asking is about where to integrate the transmitter if you're doing mini DSPs and additional software corrected stuff. I would do it before the first signal interruption, if that makes sense. Cool, good questions, guys. So, and we're doing good. I don't know how long this is going to be. We're just going to kind of go with the flow. All right, so this is kind of out of order because my brain just kind of works that way, but kind of going back to the calibration sort of things. Whenever you're running an AVR and you run your room correction, it's going to recognize, would you say these are small or large speakers, just physically looking at them? And we all know what the correct answer is in regards to settings, but these are a large speaker, right? Because they're a tower. Well, if your receiver sets these as large, what it's doing is it's sending everything to that tower. It's like, I'm going to send you everything all the way down to 10 hertz. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send very little out to your subwoofer. So my rule of thumb, what I tell people is if you have an AVR, not separate components, if you're just running a surround receiver with speakers and a subwoofer, I'm going to tell you, I don't care what speakers you have, set them at small. And the reason for that is then you'll have more bass management and adjustments that you can make on the speakers themselves and throughout your subwoofer. And what that allows you to do, I'm going to ignore that image. So if you set it to small, what happens is you have a filter that the receiver sets, meaning you go in and you set the crossover on those speakers. So these, in the receiver, I set them to small with a crossover of 80 hertz. And that way the speaker crosses, I can take it lower. Whatever speakers you have, you can go lower, you can go higher. Most of the time at home, I have these actually set at 60. But we're doing a theater and I'm getting a little bit louder here, so I pulled them up to 80, and I'm letting the subwoofer take over and do a lot of the bass that's coming from there too. If I set them to large, what happens is every bit of signal runs here, stuff that it can't even produce. Yeah, this is not meant to do 10 hertz and 20 hertz. You know? So when you do that, not only is your receiver working harder, but your speakers are working harder, and you're not giving anything to your subwoofer. So the number one call we get to customer service after people have run room corrections, like, man, my sub's not doing anything. It's because they've set the speakers to large. So if you are just running off a conventional receiver and you have speakers and have a sub, run everything at small and use our bass management tool that we showed you on the website earlier to find the crossover point for your speakers. And if you want to take them a little bit lower, you can do that too if they're a larger speaker. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time there. And we kind of already talked about the benefits of dual, but I'll deep dive a little bit more here. Those of you that have more subs, it's more fun, right? You know, it adds more depth to the room. It looks cool as hell. When you walk, I mean, the guys next door, you walk in and you see those 18-inch subs and 24-inch subs. It's a statement. It looks awesome. We get that. But the real perk of going dual is you get a better experience all the way around. This is what I was mentioning earlier. You know, when you're, how many of you the room is strictly for you and nobody else? Yeah, there's very few of us, because you wanna have your friends over to watch the game, or your family to have movie night or play video games, whatever. So when it comes to home theater, we don't really talk about the sweet spot as much as we do like a 2-channel system. So looking at this, going dual, what you'll eliminate is one seat getting bass if you just have one sub. You'll get a better transmission of bass throughout the room. So whether you're putting on the left and right side or corners, or one on this side wall and one on this side wall, the bass management throughout the room is better. It's smoother for more seating positions, and there's less nulls, and not necessarily more volume like we're saying earlier, but you just have a smoother transition from wall to wall, front to back in the room. Okay? You do get slightly more output, but not more volume. And what I mean by that is you have more gain throughout the room. Okay, so you'll hear that. If you go from 1 sub to 2, you will get a more dynamic output throughout the room. It's not getting any louder. It's just more prevalent throughout the space. Okay? And then if you do 2-channel, you know, we asked earlier, not many 2-channel guys in here, right? Just a few. If you do a 2-channel setup and your amplifier has pre-outs for left and right, running a left and right sub is really cool, because you'll get the bass that was intended by the musician and the engineer for the left side and for the right side. And those you would typically put right up by your front left and right stage to really maximize their output and get that experience too. And it's kind of fun. And when you get your subwoofer placed right in a room, you won't be locating it coming from here. You'll be locating it coming from here and there and up here when it's set right. It should sound like bass is coming from every speaker, not just the subwoofer. And even in this room, it was a complicated room. I think we accomplished that, where you got bass coming from everywhere, not necessarily just here. And that's where I'm just going. So see, I know where I'm going, but we want to eliminate bass location. And being able to walk into a room and you can just hear the bass coming from one spot and it's over the top and it's annoying can take away from the experience. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I already hit on that too. So looking at duals, we tend to do opposite corners, is I think our most popular. We're doing this just aesthetically because we're at the show. Honestly, if I was doing these and maybe they were sealed, I'd probably keep that one there and maybe put another one right here. And the reason for that, it would kind of balance throughout the room a little bit differently as well and put a little bit more bass in the back of the room. Opposite sides is really nice too if you can fit it, because you'll have bass moving forward to backward and side to side throughout the room. Not if that's where phase comes into play and making adjustments. I will tell you, never mix sealed and ported. And if maybe you've got older equipment and you're adding on, try to add a subwoofer that is as similar as possible to what you already have. And that's a big question that comes up a lot too. But once you get them in there and you get them balanced and you do your adjustments and everything, you shouldn't be dealing with phase cancellation, especially if you are playing with phase itself. Whether it's simply as going 0 and 180 or 0 and 90, if you contact our customer service team, they'll tell you go in 15-degree increments. So start at 15, then go 30, then go 45, and so on and so forth as you work your way up the line. Because even though they're directly across from each other, 0 and 180 may not be the sound or the best sound. And it's kind of fun to play with that. Shoot.
So if you want to get like that tactile feel, like that hits in your chest, I want to place one right behind my couch, and obviously one, you know, up front.
Absolutely.
Am I losing any sort of sweet spot on any additional area throughout the room if I'm doing
I would say if you're gonna do like a tactile near field sub, I'm gonna recommend 3. And the reason for that, put 2 in the balanced spots throughout the room and then get the other one right there next to you. And then you will have, because if you've got the one that's like right there in your main listening position, it may be a little wonky for the people sitting on either side too. So that's why having 2 placed ideally and then adding the 3rd for the tactileness being right there against you, that's where you'll see the 3rd one typically integrated a lot, is to be right there on where you're sitting. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Then some of you have been here earlier and we were knocking stuff out of the ceiling. You know, how many of you have to deal with vibrations from your subwoofer in your home? You know, most of us, right? So what do you do to compensate for that? You know, some of you that do DIY, you're probably having to build platforms and stuff to put your subs on, or you're building them into cabinetry. So what we have is a solution, and it will work with every subwoofer. It's called the SoundPath Subwoofer Isolation System. And what it's done, the purpose of it is to decouple a subwoofer from the floor so that the bass stays tighter in that room, doesn't transfer out to the neighboring rooms, or if you're in an apartment or a condo, doesn't disrupt them. Or, you know, in my case, my subwoofer is downstairs directly below our master bathroom, and it prevents the bass from going up there and knocking stuff down. And we'll get into that story in a little bit. That's why my subwoofer has the wife mode that shuts it off. But really to help shake that, because whenever I do a demo here in a little bit, we can hear this entire back wall just shimmying and shaking and rattling. And I could eliminate that by simply decoupling the subwoofers from the floor. And so, you know, you got Homer there, but this is what they look like. And so they go under and replace, they'll work with any sub, regardless of brand. So whether you're doing like Marty kits or SVS subs or Klipsch or Bowers or whatever, if you decouple them from the foundation, it's not going to degrade your sound quality. It would probably, in fact, even make it a little bit tighter, but it would prevent a lot of those low frequencies from escaping your room and going and traveling into those other rooms too. So if you got ours, you just flip them on their side, unscrew the little spiky feet that are in there and put them in place of that, or another brand, you can simply use 3M tape to put them on. Let me go here, then I'll go there. If it's in a basement, you tend to not need isolation as much because normally you're right there on your concrete slab. But what you may find is just elevating it that 2 inches may create a little bit more output too. So it's something you can try, and if it doesn't work, you just simply send it back to us. But you'll find typically when you add the isolation system to your sub, it's not only helping with, like, you down in a basement, you probably still have stuff shaking on the walls, like your collectibles and stuff, like I do. It reduces that too. But it also will, the best way to describe it in a 2-story home is, think is when you're on the bottom floor and there's people on the top floor, or like a hotel, and the kids are running back and forth. That's what you're eliminating happening from down going up or to other rooms. You're not being that person that's disturbing everybody else around you. But there's a chance it tightens up the sound in the room, may reduce some vibrations that are happening of things on your walls too. But really it's to just kind of tighten things up and make you be a better neighbor as well. And there was another question in the back of the room there, but did we answer it?
Oh, I was just asking about concrete and basement, they were very expensive.
Yeah, they're not going to do much in regards to changing the sound a lot, but you may find that it does make an enhancement. And it's different on every room, because it could be if you've got a finished room, depending on if you've got sheetrock, how low the ceiling is. So a lot of that comes into play. And it's $50 to try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll take it back for a set of 4. If you have a big old huge sub, you might need the 6-pack. That's $80.
It's worth noting, a lot of folks using the turntables.
Yep.
I've had our VP of operations using on his washer. There was the washing machine because it shakes all across the floor. So you can use them for other components that are sensitive to vibrational energy or things that might distort.
Yeah, I've used it on turntables, stacking components and things like that too. And so we got another question back here.
How are those different from spikes?
So spikes are used, essentially to dig into carpet. That's really the purpose there, is to keep things from moving. What these do, I can't believe we didn't bring any. That's a miss on us. I'm sorry. These are, what was weird is this is like a 6-year project just to make what most of you consider feet. But this is, we went through about 10 different types of rubber, the whole space age rubber thing inside here, the way that it actually attaches to the subwoofer. This is completely hollow in the middle and open, so you can put a screw to attach it to where the feet were on your existing sub. If your subwoofer does not have a spot for feet, what it does, you use there's 3M like double-sided tape you can use too. So in lieu of using spikes, you just unscrew the spikes, and this comes with a couple different size screws, and you just put this exactly where the spikes were. I've seen it used under bookshelf stands like this, stacking components for better airflow. You know, these things get hot. So if you have a Blu-ray player or something stacked on top of it, it'll help there too. Turntable, if you want to do more vibration reduction. CD players are making a comeback. I don't understand this whole thing where we went digital to analog, and now we're going back to digital again, but you know, hey, it's the way things go. So yeah, I mean, I have if you watch our broadcast, over my left shoulder, there's a 200 disc CD player sitting back there completely loaded, and I still have 700 CDs that aren't in there.
God forbid you have to hide your subwoofer in a cabinet, but if you have the space, it'll just help again reduce that vibration that could be infused into a piece of furniture.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that put like our 1000 series inside a cabinet, like an armoire or something. It prevents that from shaking the doors and stuff too. So
your subs come with this too?
the cylinders do.
Okay.
So he owns one of our cylinder subs. I have the cylinder sub. Because those are down firing, that's the only ones we do that are down firing. Everything else is front. Well, I guess technically this is side, so that's new. But you just need that little bit of distance between the floor and the driver because of that 3-inch excursion. So, but otherwise, you just add these on there. If it's any of our sealed subs, it's a 4-pack. If you have a big old huge sub, it's going to be 6.
Somebody commented that it also makes your sub look bigger. So
yeah, because they're not big enough. So yeah. So, but I know we didn't go into like individual rooms, and if you guys want to do that kind of offline after this, we'll get some demos going. We can answer some individual questions. We've got Nick here. But what we like to encourage is reach out to us. Utilize our customer service team. So if you are sitting in your room and you are trying to figure some things out, you need some help with settings, you want to really deep dive on some stuff, get into the menus, you can contact us via email, chat, phone, and now video-based consultations. And it's free. Okay? Yeah. So what you do is you start a chat on the website, you get in touch with one of our customer service people. We call them the sound experts because they are very heavily trained. They know Dirac, they know Odyssey, they know Rue, they know all these different things. So if there's something you're trying to accomplish, you can reach out to them. And if we need to do a video thing, we will. And what you can do, be like, you just get on your phone like a FaceTime call and like, let's look at your room. Okay, we see the room. We know your problem. Let's look at your receiver settings. Pull up your receiver settings on the screen, and we can look at that and be like, bingo, it's right there. That setting needs to be changed, and we'll see the whole world change. And that's the kind of things we'll do. Or we'll help you figure out where your speakers should go and things like that too. So utilize us. It's a great team. Most of them come from retail backgrounds, install backgrounds. They're all geeks like all of us too. And it's an amazing part of what we offer as a brand as well. And so I think that's kind of, I don't know if we've been asking questions this whole time, but we got another question back here. Man, my stomach is growling.
Is there anything like in the works there, have you thought about doing a dual cabinet sub?
Dual cabinet sub. No, probably not. I mean, we do have the micro, which has dual active drivers inside there. You know, we're already pushing what subwoofers are physically capable of with the 16 Ultra without you having to go to a 20 amp circuit. And that's really the limitations of this product is if we go, like if we do 224-inch, you're going to buy a whole new electrical system for that room because you need to do a 20 amp circuit. So I won't say never, but there's already products out there in a category for you guys that are going to do stuff like that. And really our philosophy as a brand is to bring more products that we'll see in more places and get more people into this hobby. You know, how many of you have been doing this for more than 15 years? Yeah. And how many of you have evolved a ton over the last 15 years? I mean, we do. We change stuff out all the time. So maybe our 1000 Pro where we start as a brand is where some of you started and some of you may have that now. And then you evolve down the road to kind of what you're talking there. And that's where maybe you end up with a DIY or some of our other brands that are out there that we're this weekend. Nick said this yesterday or wait, what is today? Thursday on our broadcast. This week we're not competitors. Okay. And then Gary, our CEO, is like, oh no, I got kids to put through school. But this week we're all friends here. You know, we are here to show you guys what is possible and how much fun this hobby can be. And you know, if you're walking in and you just walk in, you see something that's $400,000, it's just not in your wheelhouse, then it's more just like looking at a Ferrari driving down the street. You're never going to sit in it. You're never going to drive it. So we want to give you experience. This system here, this is 9 speakers and 2 subs, and it's 10 grand. And that's attainable for a lot of people. And it's overkill for a lot of people too because of the 16 Ultras. So we cut that back and go down to like 3000 series and can deliver exactly what we're going to show you all here in a minute with a demo in your home.
To your question,
Yeah, so,
and also to what Larry was
yeah,
alluding to earlier, we do have an in-wall subwoofer that we've developed, and that's really trying to, again, get people, plant that seed for reference quality bass and get people interested in it. And obviously it's more of a permanent fixture, but that has the dual driver 9-inch active array. And again, we'll get that into some people's homes, and they'll sort of get the itch, and then maybe they'll be upgrading as time goes by and really trying to get that reference quality performance that maybe it doesn't quite deliver. Although we're very proud of what ours does, and it's relatively easy to install, and it has some cool features where you can run dual subwoofers off a single amplifier. So there's some neat things that we're doing there, and we're not done innovating too. There's you know, subwoofers have come really, really far, but I think especially with some of the power conditioning and some of the aspects of making bigger subs that perform without having to have 220 volts or some of the special settings that you need to have. You know, we're looking at some of that right now, and it won't be too long before some of those innovations.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of hit the question point here. If you all want, I'm going to get stupid real fast. Okay. So do you want to continue this here or?
I have to mute so we don't get copyrighted.
Yeah. So I don't know where I put my remotes. This is, ignore that mess I just made. 2 of our PB16 Ultras, which are the largest subwoofers we make. 16-inch driver with an 8-inch voice coil, 1500-watt amp. These guys would go down to the low teens and lower, depending on bass management and adjustments. So we've got all that here. And then the point 4 are these speakers you see surrounding you here. And this is what we call prime elevation. And it is what we use for object-based surround sound. And that's what puts objects above you, obviously. So Dolby Atmos DTSX to complete an immersion experience. And the demo I'm going to play for you is it's one that, I don't know, we've been playing for a few years now. But everybody in our company hates it except for me.
Not true, Larry. It's grown on me.
And the reason I like it is because it showcases everything. Every channel. It shows dynamic range in the center channel. There's a ton of action that's going to be happening in this sequence. And every bit of dialogue is intelligible, which is really difficult for a lot of systems to do. It's very much a subwoofer experience, but you're going to get a lot of activity from the speakers up above you too. We're going to pressurize this room. And earlier when I did the demo, I probably played a little louder than I should and shut down everything.
Your point.
Which means he was doing it right.
Yeah.
So it's good to know.
That's right. That's the breaking point.
Like every 30 minutes, and we were running at the same time, and I'm just guessing the circuits here can't handle it. But this is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 2014. And there's a new one coming in a few weeks. I'm pretty stoked for that. And this sequence involves the turtles. They're trying to escape the bad guys, and they're doing this in an out-of-control 18-wheeler down the side of a snowy mountain. And during this sequence, you're going to be chased down by SUVs, snowmobiles. You're going to have RPG bazooka missiles shot at you from the front of the room to the back of the room and then explode. When that does, there's going to be this massive base sweep that's going to take on the room. Okay? From there, we continue the escape, and you're going to join Leonardo, one of the swords, as he is using the swords off his back to move. You're going to hear the swords coming from all around you as it moves throughout the space, as him trying to escape, and then get run over by a truck. Okay? And that's going to go right above us through here, through this space. And then he runs into a little bit of trouble, and Donatello, the purple one with the staff, is going to come out and save him. And when he does, we're going to take this room to about 12 hertz, right, for just an immense bass sweep. I'm going to watch my volume so that we don't have it shut down because we're broadcasting live.
So that's an 80 hertz crossover on all the speakers?
All the speakers, other than the elevations, they're at 90. Everything else is at 80. At home, I cross them a little bit lower because I'm not quite getting to these volume levels. But I think you all will enjoy where we're about to go here. So, all right, here we go, guys.
There we go, guys!
Sonny, what's the fastest way back to Manhattan? We just need to stay on this road. We can get to the maintenance hatch at the bottom of the hill. There's a sewer line 2.4 miles from here. Okay, let him know up there.
Oh, no.
Actually, we're on a big shortcut, but we need to keep going down, straight down.
What's up, Angel Kids? Phil's in trouble!
My shell's cracked. Just take me out. Allow me to be the badass for once.
We try.
Just pull the volume down a little bit. All right, I think we're good at the volume I just chose. Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
A couple times.
Allow me to be the badass for once.
If we were a few dB higher, you all would have experienced about 11 hertz in a room this size with 2 subs. So the reason we only brought 2 is because if we can blow you away with 2 subs in a system like this, I think you have an idea of where you could go with more. And this is an attainable system for a lot of people, even though it is where it is price-wise. It's still extremely affordable considering what else is here at the show. And once again, we can recreate that with our 2000 series, with our 3000 series in your home, and give you exactly what you just heard. And I think we'll do, you want one more demos?
Let's say goodbye to the live
Yeah,
crowd. Your
let's say
mic
goodbye to
actually
the live broadcast.
cut out.
So awesome. Well, bye everybody. It was awesome getting to do this. We wanted to do this a few months back when we were at Exponent, so I'm glad you got to hang out.
Thanks all. We did have the external mics, but they cut out, so we appreciate everyone's time. Yeah, I think the bass broke them, so it's all good. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we will be at Audio Advice Live in Raleigh, North Carolina on the weekend of August 4th through the 6th. So we'll be doing another live stream. You can check us out in person there. Happy listening. Sorry guys.